Oh, a happy Friday, happy Friday, happy Friday, everyone. My name is Justin Moore, founder of Creator Wizard, where I teach you how to find and negotiate your dream sponsorships. Today, we are talking about this question: should you charge 2x for holiday sponsorships, or should you charge more? I recently posted on Twitter and LinkedIn and stuff like this, something that resonated with a lot of people. I think I mentioned that, many creators make the mistake of nickel and diming brands for every single request that falls outside the scope of work or when demand. It's a quick turnaround time, this type of thing. And I mentioned that while in some instances that might be warranted, the vast majority of the time, you'd actually be better off making your contact a hero by doing them, let's say, one more quick edit or voiceover. And surprise, surprise, they'll probably send you a bunch more business since they know that you have their back. And this elicited a lot of really interesting responses. But this topic came up. It was like, okay, well, what about the holidays, right? There's, a lot of brands backload their marketing budget, and they really want to, partner with creators. And sometimes it's like very quick turnaround times and things like that. Like, should you charge more for that? Demand and supply, baby, right? Like that's, I should be charging more for stuff like that. And so this is the subject today. So let me know where you're tuning in from. I'm live across YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Twitch, you name it. I'm everywhere. We've got Molly, Mo Dizzle, what's up? We got Vlog Epicness. We've got the Wheelchair Dad. Hey, what's going on? We've got Samir from 2 Chapters Ahead tuning in on Instagram. We've got Meredith. We've got Lalisa Marie. Good to see you here. Let's see who we got tuning in elsewhere. We've got Architectural Sheet Metal 101. We've got Kaylee tuning in on YouTube. Good to see you all here. And so as you know, these live streams that I do every Friday are for y'all. And so my time is your time. I'm going to talk a little bit about today's subject, and then any questions that you have around sponsorships and negotiating and brand deals, please drop it in the chat and we'll address that. Wheelchair Dad said from Utah, got your program a few weeks ago. It's helping so much. Thank you. I'm so glad to hear that. It's been so helpful. Good to see you here on this live stream today. All right. So let's talk about the subject today. So the first thing I want to talk about is that charging more during the holidays, oftentimes to brands makes it feel like you have no rhyme or reason behind your pricing. And you're setting your rates like if you're setting your rates in a haphazard way, what does that communicate about how you run other aspects of your business? I ran an influencer marketing agency for 7 years, and this oftentimes happened where, let's say we would collaborate with a creator in the summer or back to school or, even earlier, maybe winter, spring, this type of thing. And it was a really good experience. And then we would, say like, okay, hey, like internally, we were having dialogues about the holiday campaign that we were going to be running for a brand. And then we would kind of slot that creator into the deck to present to the client to say, hey, let's do a winter campaign or a holiday campaign. We think we should work with this other creator again that we worked with like earlier because we had a great experience. Brand says, hey, that sounds good, thumbs up. And then, client essentially green lights that campaign, and then the agency reaches out. We would reach out to the creator, and the creator said, sorry, my rates are now 2, 3, 5x. I just charge more during the holidays, this type of thing. And so it just really kind of left a sour taste in our mouths because we really did want to, work with that creator again, but our hands were tied from a budget perspective. Now, let me be clear. Like if there were increases in reach, if there were increases in footprint in terms of the, potential impact that this creator could have now, maybe they grew, 2, 3x, 5x in the last 6 months that we'd work with them, of course, there's total justification there to be increasing your prices. But what I'm talking about is just same footprint, maybe marginally, higher or lower, but 2, 3, 5xing the rate just simply because it's the holidays. And so that was really the challenge, is that we had to go back to the brand and say, hey, sorry, we can't work with this creator anymore. And the brand would be like, what happened? And it puts us in this really tricky position. And a lot of it is like kind of lessons learned, because rather than slotting people into the plan, we now have to do all this extra legwork to like reach out constantly to creators like that and say, okay, is your rate still the same? Is your rate still the same? And like most agencies are not going to do that. They don't want to do that because they don't have time to do that. And so if it's just easier to work with the creator where there's some level of predictability in terms of what they charge to collaborate, those are the people that are going to get slotted in. right? So that's one point. We've got Mela Fidel, we've got A Life Refurbished, we've got Hello Falcon tuning in, Dave Johnson, good to see you here on Instagram, Good Better Bex, good to see you here. So again, if you have any questions around brand deals and sponsorships and all that good stuff, drop it in the chat. We're going to be talking about that. So the second point that I wanted to talk about is that charging more during the holidays makes it hard for brands to slot you into their budgets for things that are a little bit outside of what they perhaps did last time. So let's say that you did a collaboration on one platform, and they said, hey, that was a really good experience, and we want to collaborate with this creator again, but this time we're going to be activating on this other platform over here. The creators would, even if that creator had a significantly lower following on that other platform, the creator would still charge a lot more money during the holidays, or just a lot more money in general. And this is a challenge because if a creator, let's say, has 100,000 followers on Instagram and 10,000 followers on TikTok or YouTube or something like this, I'm just giving you an example here. A lot of creators, they don't want to feel like they're going backwards. They don't want to feel like, well, I'm able to charge, $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 on, this platform. But if the brand wants to collaborate with me on this other platform, well, I'm not going to charge $200. I'm not going to charge $300. It's not going to be worth my time. And they get mad at the brand and they say, hey, you got to pay me the same amount, even though my following or my reach is 1/10 of that on this other platform. And that's like a really tricky situation because, look at it from the brand's perspective, like the reach is going to be significantly hampered if they want to activate on this other platform, but you really just don't have the reach over there. And so, just candidly, like my wife and I have done deals on platforms where, we were paid significantly less for an activation, because we had a lot less followers, let's say on TikTok, than we do on other platforms like Instagram or YouTube, because we understand that the campaign metrics are going to be different. The reach that we have is going to be different on this platform versus over here. I talk about a lot in my content how this idea of having a diversified stock portfolio with your sponsorship strategy, it's like you're not going to make the same amount of money on every deal. And so stubbornly refusing to work or collaborate with brands if they're not willing to pay you your standard rate, this is why it feels like, and then this is actually the third point that I want to talk about, is that, creators charging more during the holidays is a very short-term financial gain at the expense of a longer term relationship, right? Creators complain all the time about, I'm only getting one-off deals. And, I wish I could find more like, consistent partnerships. It's because your whole goal when you collaborate with brands should be to maximize the duration of the relationship, not just maximize the amount of money you're making on each individual deal. There's this idea in, pardon me, in sales, and especially if you, let's say, have like a software business or software program or things like that. There's these terms that I think are kind of interesting to think about as a creator. The first one is churn, right? Churn is this idea of how many people are, let's say someone signs up for $100 a month software program. Each month, how many people are canceling their subscription, right? That's called churn, because then to maintain the same level of revenue, you now have to find new customers to basically plug your leaky bucket, because you're leaking customers out the bottom of the bucket. And so you have to find new customers to take place to like not decrease your revenue. And so the parallel for creators is like, how can you plug the bottom of your bucket? Meaning like you can continue to work with brands over and over, so you're not out there constantly trying to hustle and try and find your next deal. And so churn is an important thing to think about. And then the other thing, which is kind of the unifying theme of today's discussion, is the concept of LTV, right? Or lifetime value. And this means what the definition of this, if you think kind of in a software term, is like, okay, the average customer sticks with our software for, let's say, 6 months. We look at all the data, like they usually stay around for about 6 months. And if it's $100 a month product, then the lifetime value of my customer, or my average customer, is $600. If you look at that same type of idea with your sponsorship strategy, what is your lifetime value of your relationship with these brands? If it's only one sale, if the only thing that you're doing is like this initial engagement at the very beginning, then your lifetime value is going to be very low, because again, it's only that first deal. Contrast that if you now have this perspective where like, okay, like it's not just about this first sale. It's about how can I maximize the total value of this partnership over time. You may now have the perspective that like, okay, I'm not going to try and maximize that initial deal. What I really am going to try and do is, do kick-ass work for that very first deal and then be able to forge, let's say, a 6-month or 12-month partnership where now I'm being, instead of paying, getting paid $2,000 for this very first deal, yeah, maybe I got paid $1,500, but now I was able to lock in $1,500 a month for 6 months. And so now that instead of like, let's say $1,000 that you would have made or $1,500 or whatever, you're now making, 1,000 times, 6, which is obviously $6,000, a lot more money. So again, I like one of the reasons that I like coming on here and talking about these types of principles and kind of pulling from other industries and other businesses and things like that is I do think there's a lot of really useful frameworks that we can think about as creators to help make our business more robust and predictable. And so in fact, this is something that I cover in extreme detail in my program, Brand Deal Wizard, is like this idea of creating this sponsorship wheel, right? It's my 8-step methodology to land consistent high-paying sponsorships. And so it's this idea of building a sponsorship pipeline, right? So you're no longer sitting on your hands waiting for opportunities to come inbound to you. Like you're out there, you're pounding the pavement, you're getting out there, you're pitching. Even if you do have inbound deal flow, like you realize, like regardless of where you're at on your creator journey, there is value in like supplementing all that with outbound prospecting. So, with that, let me know in the comments what questions you have. We've got Melissa says this. We've got Jason Larkins. We've got Honing Home tuning in. We've got Skylar the Maligator. I don't know, Skylar them alligator. I don't know how to pronounce your name, but good to see you here. You got Trudy Tully. Good to see you here. We got Sarah Dawn. Good to see you. We've got Starlight Girl 16 saying this is useful information. Awesome to hear. We've got She Fires. What's going on, She Fires? Good to see you here. I'm going to take a swig while you guys light up the chat with your questions on a Friday. I'll be a little honest with you guys. My cup is feeling pretty empty today. I just wrapped up cohort number 10, the live cohort of my Brand Deal Wizard program, and I put everything on the line for that program, guys. It's like a big undertaking for me and my team to, there's multiple sessions a week, and there are multiple hours usually each session, and I just put a lot into it. And I always feel this, again, this is the 10th cohort that I'm doing. And always at the end, I just want to go lay down and take a 2-day nap because it's just like a lot. And the reason that I do it kind of in the October to November timeframe is that as we're talking about today, there's lots of holiday partnerships that happen in Q4. And so I always want to try to prepare creators who could take advantage of a lot of these opportunities, by educating them prior to the prime holiday season, right? So now that it's over, I get a little bit of time to get a breather, pardon me, and kind of. Candidly, I also kind of put off a lot of things till after it. So I have all these people wanting to meet or do podcasts or just projects that I've been wanting to work on. And I always just push it on my calendar till after the cohort is over. Because that's time when I can, start focusing on stuff a little bit more. She Fire says, I hope to join the cohort in the future. The presentation is great, so I'm sure that the content is hearty. That's so kind of you. Yeah, would absolutely love to work with you. If you, so also just a little bit of behind the scenes stuff. I'm honestly not sure when the next live cohort is going to be. It's been kind of a moving target because I want to write this book. I think I've mentioned last week and in some other live streams that this is squarely on kind of the next big project I would say for me is writing this book that I want to release hopefully sometime in the late spring. And I know that I'm going to need to make some space in my life and my calendar and the business to actually make that happen because I know that it's going to be a big undertaking. And so I've toyed with the idea. I actually was not going to do this live cohort, but people were just kind of clamoring for that, especially given the holidays coming up with the deals and everything. And so I was like, okay, let me do this one. And so I am thinking pretty seriously about skipping the February-March cohort, which would be cohort 11. And so it may not be 6 months or so before I do another one. So we'll see. I'm not really sure. Because I do want to really, carve out time in my calendar to, to finish this book. The other thing too is I've been considering entering kind of a season of no, almost, where I'm gonna try to start saying no to a lot of opportunities, podcast appearances, things like that. It's tough because like for the last 3 years of building Creator Wizard, I've basically said yes to everything. That was my ethos. My logic was like, okay, if I want to grow this thing, I just need to be everywhere. It's like full court press on content. Anyone, who asks to collaborate, regardless of their size of their podcast or their YouTube channel or their newsletter or their, private community, I'm going to be there. I'm going to do a session. And like a lot of people ask me like, oh, how have you grown so much over the last 3 years? It's just been like, honestly, it's just been a bunch of that, speaking to a group of 3 people, speaking to a group of 20 people, speaking to like a small YouTuber's channel, like it's just been like tons and tons of that. And so there really has been no secret behind it other than just like grinding. And so the prospect of like starting to say no to certain opportunities, especially if they're kind of seem like good opportunities, is a little nerve-wracking, to be honest. But I feel like if I want to like achieve this big next thing about writing the book, I'm going to need to do that. So if any of you have like tips of like how to enter a season of no, if you've ever done something like that, please let me know. Like, what is the way, what is the way that I can gracefully do that? The way I've been doing it is I say, I'm juggling a bunch of internal projects right now, and I'm not able to commit to a collaboration right now or a call at this time. Let me know if there's anything I can do to support you asynchronously. So that's what I've been kind of saying, and that's been helping. Yeah. I think also it's not about what I say to people. It's more about mentally inside myself. Like, how do I make peace with turning down opportunities that seem really good? Like if a big podcaster reaches out or something, is like, hey, be on my show. And I'm just like, that seems like a good opportunity. I should do that, anyways. Yeah. So I don't know. That kind of went on a ramble here. So yeah, anyways. Okay. So, all right, what have we got let me dive into the Instagram chat. Meredith says, you need to calendar in yourself a nap. That's exactly what I need to do, Meredith. I think that's what it is. Jason, what's going on? We got Jason said, I heard you on Grow the Show. You were great. I redid the way I've been trying to do brand deals after listening. I'm brand new. I don't know much. I asked one brand for their 3 tiers and it worked. Jason, that's absolutely enormous. The next one I asked for their tiers, they didn't have anything in mind. Haha, I was lost. The book, The One Thing, is really good to focus on and saying no. I need to write that down, The One Thing. Hold on, I'm going to write that down because I want to. Okay, The One Thing. I've been bookmarking a bunch of books lately. The One Thing book. Okay, thank you, Jason. I'm going to look that up. I'm going to bookmark that one. First of all, yeah, stoked to hear about the people. Yeah, so what I've said about the 3 tiers thing. So what Jason is talking about is I was on a podcast with a guy named Kevin. He has a podcast called Grow the Show. And we were talking about this idea about pricing. Like how do you price deals when you don't really have any sort of like directional sense of like what a brand's would be willing to pay you for a collaboration. And the advice that I gave on that podcast was you can say something quite simple. After at the end of this conversation where you've been asking a bunch of questions and gathering a bunch of information, you say, thank you so much. If they say, okay, well, how much do you charge for like an ad read on your podcast? Or how much do you charge for a YouTube video or a TikTok post or a newsletter insertion or something like that? You can say, thank you so much. This has been super helpful. I would love to go back and give this some thought and put together a proposal of how we could, the different ways in which we can collaborate. Typically what I like to do is I like to put together a couple different packages. Do you have a sense of what those 3 tiers should be from a budget feasibility perspective? And so this allows the brand to give you a range oftentimes where they can be quite conservative. Usually they'll say, oh, 1, 2, 3K or 5, 10, 15K or something like that. And I have found doing this across hundreds, thousands of sponsorships that brands will, they'll tell you about 75% of the time. And so that's great data to have, like to structure around your proposal. The remaining 25% of the time is they're not going to say anything. They're going to say, you tell us, we don't really have any idea. And so what I usually say in that scenario is package number 1 has to be your hell yeah number. So when you send back packages to this brand who won't tell you the range, you need to make sure that whatever that number comes in and at package 1, whether it's 1,000, 5K, 10K, whatever it is, that if they chose that, which is like the lowest option, that you'll say, hell yeah, I'm excited to do this collaboration and not like resent it. Like, oh man, I got to do this now. Right. And so I realize it's kind of unscientific, but and I do have obviously more sophisticated stuff like in my program calculators and all that stuff. But like, this is just kind of a good framework I've found to help you kind of directionally set your pricing. So yeah, thrilled to hear that that worked out for you, Jason. All right. Sarah said, "Oh no, I hope naps are a thing. I'm super sleepy today. I think it's because of the daylight savings time change. It's getting dark super early. Yeah, I'll pick my kids up from school and they'll be like, "Why'd you pick us up so late?" I'm like, "It's the same time. It's just darker now." Kids don't like really get it, but it's funny. We've got Hanadi from the KMH family. Hey, Justin, hope everyone is all as well. Good to see you here. Thank you. Hope your family is well as well. All right, we got a question here from Architectural Sheet Metal. Oh yeah, real quickly, let me close the loop on what I was telling you, she fires, about the cohort, is that if you cannot wait 6 months, which is likely when it's going to be till the next cohort, I do have the on-demand option of the program, which is 50% of the investment. So the live cohort is typically 3K. And so the on-demand is around 1,500. So if that's something, if you want to get in there, get in the community, learn the stuff asynchronously, definitely check that out. It's just creatorwizard.com/branddealwizard. All right. Okay. There's a question here from Architectural Sheet Metal. Hey, Justin, most brands in my niche are extremely unaware of how much opportunity there is online. What's a good icebreaker to get these old heads on board? I love this question. So if you're in a niche and all the brands or all the companies in your industry are just really traditional, they don't understand the value of social media or working with creators, working with influencers, this type of thing, it can get kind of frustrating when you reach out. Oh no, we don't do that. Sorry, you're barking up the wrong tree, is kind of the vibe that a lot of people feel when they try to pitch a brand like this. And the mistake I think a lot of creators make is trying to convince those types of brands that their current tactics are bad. So they say, hey, I see you're doing TV ads still, or you're only doing magazine ads in these like really really obscure magazines that no one reads, and you're paying thousands of dollars for these like full page magazine ads. Like, that's stupid. You should stop doing that. That's a waste of your money. You know what is a good money? Working with creators, working with me, because I can move the needle on your business, move you into the next generation, the next chapter, of marketing and stuff like that. And this is a vibe that a lot of creators lead with when they're trying to pitch a traditional brand. And in my experience, that will almost always fall on deaf ears. Because what are you saying with that pitch? You're basically saying you're stupid. What you've been doing for the last 25 years sucks. You're an idiot. You should work with me. I'm a genius. People are kind of reading between the lines. And in fact, the other really challenging thing that you might run into is that the person you're pitching might have been the decision maker. It was actually their responsibility. It was their job to do the media buying and decide where they are, going to allocate all their marketing dollars. And so you may, in essence, be saying to them like, "Oh, like you're an idiot. You personally are an idiot because that was the decision that you made." And so, what I, have found to be a much better tactic is to say, "Hey, you don't need to stop doing what you're currently doing. That's fine, but here is a supplement to that. We can try this other thing over here that may, in fact, help you understand how it's a complement to your current strategies." What you can't do is overestimate the power of inertia, the power of people not wanting to rock the boat, right? When you have a large incumbent organization that has spent 20 years or 30 years or 50 years doing things a certain way, and if you come in and say, "Hey, you should blow that all up, don't do that anymore, do this new thing over here," a lot of people will just clam up. It just seems too scary to make giant changes like that and try to turn this massive, cargo ship that has, the inertia of, you've been going on this course. Like, that's actually a good parallel. Like, think about a giant container ship. You've got all these containers on it. It is stacked to the brim. To be able to turn that ship, or to be able to slow down that ship, to be able to stop when they need to at a port, they have to put the ship in reverse, or put the brakes basically on that ship miles out from the port. If they want to turn that ship, they have to, it requires a huge amount of energy to be able to get it onto the right course. And so if you think about that same principle when it comes to actually like moving an organization and making them, actually turn the ship, to do something else, it requires so much coordination internally. There may be different departments that get pissed off, and you like, oh, how dare you? That person does that, and a lot of times people just don't want to put their neck on the line. They don't want to be the one because it's scary. Like, what if it doesn't work? Is your job going to be at risk? Are you going to be the laughing stock of the organization if you have to be the one to stand up at the all hands meeting or the all hands marketing meeting next quarter and talk about how this experimental thing that you did, like didn't work? Do you want to be that person? No, like a lot of people don't want to be that person. It has to be such a compelling pitch that to actually make that happen. And so this is why I'm saying that the angle of like coming into them and saying like, hey, stop doing what you're doing, do this thing instead is not a great approach, because likely it's gonna fall on deaf ears. Instead, it's say, hey, you don't need to stop anything you're doing, but let's do this other thing in here that's just a very slight course correction. Like just a little bit of a pivot over here. You still keep running the course, but I'm gonna like throw a dinghy off the side of the ship here, and I'm just gonna like kind of draft in your wake. I'm gonna try this other thing, and you never know. This thing actually you might find it to be additive to your current strategies. And so. Yeah, Circle H Scuba says, love the big ship coming to port analogy. I'm stealing that for my day job. Yeah, I think it's a great analogy because, and I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Circle H Scuba, is our newest member of the Wizards Guild, which is our asynchronous coaching program every Tuesday and Thursday. And so it's been awesome working with Thomas. And he has a really amazing niche, which is scuba diving. And so I think this is actually a really relevant example to architectural sheet metal to your niche, which is that he also is in an industry that's kind of behind the times a little bit. And he's had to think of creative solutions to talk to a lot of these, brands about why it makes sense to partner with him and partner with creators in general. And so I would really recommend, if you haven't seen the coaching call, the public coaching call that I did with Thomas on my YouTube channel, go check that out because we talk about this very thing. Thomas says, thanks. I just sent my first proposal today with price packages, getting it done from bed. Yes. Hope you feel better, man. I know you're a little under the weather. Hopefully that's helpful. Architectural sheet metal. I think that really is like the most important point here is just like, don't try to tell them don't say they're stupid. Say, hey, you're smart. But working with me, I can make you even smarter. So it's like an additive thing. Okay. Chef Clay Smith says, hey, great live. I have been following you for a couple years now. You are blowing my mind right now, Clay, because I don't know if I've ever seen a comment from you. So the fact that you've been following me for a couple years is blowing my mind. This is the power of the internet, guys. How many people do you follow, but you've never left a comment? And so like to see you here and for you to make that comment really means a lot to me, because it's like, you never know like who has been following you for years and like never engaging or never commenting. So good to see you here, man. And glad to hear you're getting value out of it. All right. Architectural Sheet Metal said, what is the program where you meet on Tuesday and Thursdays? So this is my Wizards Guild program. It's a relatively new program, and it is asynchronous coaching. So every Tuesday and Thursday, you can send in videos, voice notes, screenshots, PDFs of your ongoing negotiations and deals that you're working on with brands or pitches you're sending, things like that. And my team and I will support you in that. And so you can send in questions like, any day, any time, but we essentially allocate a time on Tuesdays and Thursdays to help people on a weekly basis with their ongoing strategy. And so this is a response. This program, we created it 6 months, I guess almost maybe a year ago now. And we have 8 creators in there right now. And so it's been really exciting and really fun because we're able to, we made this program in response to people's requests. Like a lot of the people wanted more support after the course. So a lot of them are alumni of the program. Not all of them are, I think 7 of them are alumni of the program and 1 of them isn't. They just decided they wanted the right away, the support. And so we created it, and it's wildly exceeded my expectations in terms of the impact. And so just the investment is $1,000 a month, and I think the real advantage of it is that we don't take a percentage of your deals. We're not a manager. We're not an agent. We're not going to take 20% cut. We are basically just unbiased advisor, kind of a coach on speed dial to help you navigate a lot of this stuff. oh, Circle H Scuba says, regarding the guild, I had to sign up. I went from 0 deals to juggling 5 to 6 responses at once, and Justin and Dee have been amazing to help navigate it. So happy to hear that, man. That's huge. I'm gonna screenshot this because I love hearing this. We don't have a ton of like testimonials about the guild yet because it's so new. So I'm gonna screenshot that one. Thanks, Thomas. I'm so glad to hear that you're getting value out of it, man. And so, all right. Okay, yeah. So it's $1,000 a month for that. And again, it is for creators who aren't trying to navigate a lot of things that are going on in their business. And Thomas can even vouch the fact that we end up venturing into other topics oftentimes in the guild with respect to just creator like monetization generally for your creator business. Whether it's like, oh, I want to do courses, or I want to do affiliate marketing, or I want to make digital products or whatever. I have a lot of experience with that over the last, let's say 15 years as a creator. And so I love talking about that stuff too. And so we're oftentimes digging into some of that fun stuff too. All right. So we got a question. Oh, we got Deb Mocktail Mom tuning in on Instagram. Good to see you here, Deb. Love to see you on the live streams. We got Danny Marie. We've got Andre Alves. We've got the Decor Natural. Love it. Dinner Club Diaries. We've got Alexis C. Jones, Cheryl Lay Lynn. Good to see you here. We've got Samir with the fire emojis. Yes, only Connie. Good to see you all here on the Instagram chat. Okay, let's see here. Question here from Russell Muscle TV. Any tips for trying to get sponsorships for a smaller creator? I've been reaching out to brands with nothing catching. Might just be because I'm too small with 5K views per vid. So Russell, maybe you can share a little bit about the thrust of what you're pitching. Oftentimes I've found there's 2 variables when it comes to the reason that you may not be hearing back. And the 2 variables are as follows. Number 1 is that you are pitching something that is not interesting. You're saying, hi, my name is Russell Muscle TV. I would love to collaborate with you. I'm getting 5K views per video on my YouTube channel. Here's my demographics. Here's how many subscribers I have. Would love to collaborate. That's the thrust of what most people pitch. And so what I teach is that I have this pitching methodology called the ROPE method, which R stands for relevant. So your pitch has to be tied to something relevant, a campaign that's relevant for the brand currently. They're either running it currently or they've run it in the past. O stands for you can tie your pitch back to organic content or work that you've published previously to illustrate that your audience has affinity for their brand or their product. P stands for proof, so you can illustrate how you've helped other brands achieve results. And E stands for easy to execute, when the brand says that they might be interested. And so the form that this could take is like, let's say that you're pitching, Muscle Milk. I don't know. I'm assuming maybe you do weightlifting stuff. And so Muscle Milk, I think, is like a protein shake or something, right? So you could say, hey, Muscle Milk, I saw that, around the holidays, it's really, it can be tricky to stay motivated to do your workouts when there's family around and stuff like that. But here's a campaign or some 5 tips, maybe they're posting about that on their Instagram or something like that. Or maybe they did that last year. And you could say, hey, I saw that you were running that campaign about the value of your product, during the holiday season. I would love to, are you going to be running that campaign again this year? And then you link a post. You can say, I also talk about that on my channel. Here's you link the video where they can click through. They can see that you made a post about that that's kind of relevant to the campaign that they ran last year. And you say, I was wondering if you're going to be running that campaign again this year. I would love to do 2 integrated YouTube videos. I can do a sponsored community post. I can turn it around within 10 days. Usage rights through the end of the year. I'm also happy to share a case study of how I've helped this other brand that's in a similar category to you achieve results. Are you free on Thursday at 10 a.m. to talk about it? That's a rope pitch. That's where it's directly relevant to them because it's a campaign that they ran in the past. And so that's this first component I'm mentioning is that I advise that your pitch should take this form almost every time because it's not about you. It's about how can I help move the needle for this brand on something that's important to them? Because again, remember, Brands don't have random piles of money laying around to pay random creators who they don't know, who reach out and say, hey, collaborate with me. Here, let me stretch my hands out. Can you put some money in my hands? They don't have money for that. They delete your pitch or they don't respond. What they do have money for is their own initiatives. They have budgets for their own initiatives. So it's your job to investigate and speculate what their initiatives are. And I talk about a lot how brands they leave breadcrumbs on social media, on their Instagram, on their LinkedIn, on their press releases, on their website, on their job boards. There's so many different things that you can look at to try to ascertain some of this information. So that's number one, is like your pitch might need some fine tuning. Okay. The second thing is that you might be sending it to the wrong person. I talk about this in detail in the first section of my Brand Deal Wizard program. Is like, there is an art and a science to it. It's like understanding that, the job titles of the people that you should be reaching out to is going to change depending on the scale of the organization. So if it's a small family run business, let's say, the director of marketing or the marketing manager is probably going to be the person to reach out to, because there's no one else on the marketing team here, right? You look at LinkedIn and you start looking at kind of the marketing hierarchy. You start realizing like, oh yeah, there's only one person in marketing here. So that's who I'm going to reach out to. It gets more complicated as you start going after larger brands. Let's say a CPG or consumer packaged goods brand like Muscle Milk. They're probably going to be so large that they have not only multiple people in their marketing organization, but they have probably offloaded creator partnerships, influencer marketing, et cetera, to an advertising agency. And so your job now has to become going out, figuring out who the agency is, figuring out who's on that account. What's the title? Is it an account executive? Is it a director, coordinator, something like this? So again, I go into this in a lot more detail in my program, but like those are the two components, is like, what are you saying and who are you saying it to? And if you can really like get good at both of those things, your success rate is going to grow significantly. What I hope you notice is that I didn't say, hey, the reason that you're not hearing back is because you're too small. It's because you're not getting, a ton of views per video. There may be some brands that's what they care about, but at least in my experience, if you can pitch a brand something that is like hyper relevant to what's going on in their world, they'll be not as interested in your reach. They'll be more interested in about, wow, this creator actually has a lot of value. They did a lot of research. Let's talk to this person. Pardon me. And so again, don't let the low viewership thing be an obstacle for you to really kind of shoot your shot. I have worked, I can't tell you how many creators I've worked with that have been even like smaller than you, Russell, lower amount of views average per video, that have absolutely no problem landing deals because they kind of understand that it's not like what's in it for them. It's about the brand. It's not about them and their kind of insecurity around the viewership that they're getting. So to bookend this, like there's one final thing I want to say, which is that what you pitch has to change based on where you're at in your creator journey. So let's say that you're over here, you feel as though you're very early on in your journey, Russell Muscle TV. I'll just start saying Russell. To some brands that you reach out to, 5,000 views per video may not be meaningful enough for them to want to pay you. And so what you're likely pitching in that scenario is not, hey, let me talk about you on my YouTube channel. It may be to certain brands, hey, let me create content for you, brand, that you put on your YouTube channel, or you put on your social media, or you run for paid advertising. That's what I'm going to pitch in the earlier part of my journey. Then when maybe you grow a little bit and you are getting some more meaningful views, maybe it's a hybrid pitch. I'm going to create some content for you. I'm going to publish some of this content or cross-post it or whatever. That's an interesting pitch now. And then, maybe you do, achieve a certain level of scale. Now you're getting 20, 30, 40, 50,000 views per video. Now it becomes very meaningful for some brands for you to kind of give them a shout out on your platforms. And so I talk about this idea that like what you pitch has to change. It's kind of a continuum. And so you really have to keep this pulse check on where you're at so you can understand how to position the pitch. Okay. So hopefully that helps. All right. Deb says, you're the best. No, you're the best, Deb. Thank you. We've got Texas DIY Mama tuning in. Yes, Samir says, haha. Yeah, exactly. We've got James Rosshauser. I don't think I'm pronouncing that correctly. I apologize, James, but good to see you here. Livin' La Vida Lindsay just tuned in. Good to see you here. Nostalgia Unboxed says, "It's our boy. Give us those details. What's going on? Good to see you here." All right, we've got a question here. Oh, Christmas on Crestline said, "Nicely said." You're probably Christmas on Crestline. You're probably seeing a lot of increased viewership closer to the holidays, huh? All right. There's some comments here or a question here from Chef Clay Smith. What do you think about the difference between TikTok and Instagram? I'm growing really well in TikTok with an amazing audience. Instagram just doesn't seem to work for my business anymore. Really interesting, Clay. So, one thing that so my good friend Jay Klaus released a video with Jenny Hoyos recently on his YouTube channel. And if you haven't seen that video, I'd really recommend checking it out. It was all around how Jenny people call her kind of the shorts queen. She averages like 10 million views per short, like YouTube short. And so she has a lot of really interesting insights on short form content. And one of the things that they talked about in that video was the differences between TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube shorts. And so I wish I could pull it up because I'm going from memory here, but the things that do really well on TikTok are very much the kind of like stripped down green screen. I'm in my bedroom, just like sharing tips with you, this type of idea. And that type of stuff really thrives on TikTok. It can work sometimes on Instagram, but there is more of an appetite for, content that's more polished on Instagram. And so if you had to look at the kind of polish continuum, like TikTok is the lowest polish, Instagram Reels is kind of the medium polish, and YouTube Shorts is like people expect really high quality on YouTube Shorts more so than the other platforms. And so I think there's this desire to want to like cross post everything everywhere because, hey, it's a short, it's less than 60 seconds. Like, let me just, maximize the reach and cross post it, syndicated across platforms. I'm guilty of that. I do that. I'm not proud of it. I'm trying to get more sophisticated with kind of the strategy across platform, but it's tempting, right? Because it's like, I've got this video, I made it, I should just cross post it and see, where it does well. But I think there really is this, the savvy creators are starting to realize that there may need to be a slightly different approach depending on the platforms. One thing that I've considered, as I'm growing the team and have kind of more support to kind of think through this stuff in a little bit more detail, thinking about creating actually two versions for each of the platforms. So there may be a version of a video that I make where it's more of a green screen approach, and then I post that on TikTok. And then for Instagram Reels, I do something a little bit differently. Maybe I'm filming with, my DSLR camera. I'm filming, let's say I do a setup where I have my phone right here, and then I have my DSLR camera set up right next to it. And maybe I'm filming both things. So I use the green screen on the phone and then the DSLR for, let's say, Instagram Reels or YouTube Shorts. So I know that there's savvy operators who are thinking about doing stuff like this. And it's hard because when you're an individual creator, you don't oftentimes have the bandwidth to make different versions of assets across the different platforms. But I do think that there's something to be said about just the difference in the audience across the platform. So definitely go check that video out on Jay's channel because it was a really good one. This is interesting. Chef Clay Smith says, I actually find most of my most polished content does the best on TikTok. Super interesting. Yeah. And so this may be a good example of the fact that maybe it depends on your audience. You just have an audience that has an appetite for a certain type of content on a certain type of platform, and it may run counter to what other people experience. It also could be potentially generational. Maybe there's people who younger Gen Z type people prefer a different type of audience or, content. And if your audience is older, maybe they do appreciate the polished stuff more. Look, if you think back to, I'm maybe dating myself or aging myself, but how many of you remember when those tasty videos were blowing up on Facebook? This was the hands and pans, really gratuitously beautiful shots of food that BuzzFeed had this arm called Tasty. That stuff was really polished oftentimes. And, potentially an older audience who was into that, right? And so I'm wondering if maybe your audience demographics plays a role there. I think, yeah, Sarah said, oh, good Lord. Yes, I remember those. Yeah, it's good. Thomas says, yeah, I remember those too. And so I think it's it can be kind of, the really tough thing, I'll be totally honest, is I feel sometimes it's a moving target on social media, what works on different platforms and what doesn't and things like that. And it can be kind of frustrating trying to like figure out what does my audience want? What does the platforms want? Because it seems like what may have worked 12 months ago is no longer working, and it's this kind of very frustrating experience that I think that creators have sometimes. And my best piece of advice is that if you assign your self-worth to and the only way in which you assign your self-worth and whether you're succeeding or failing in your business is based on the views and the reach that you have on social media platforms, that is a one-way ticket to burnout. It's a one-way ticket to, like feeling as though you don't have control over anything. Because let's be honest, like, yeah, of course you can like learn to get better, and you can invest in, you could watch videos and tutorials and invest in courses and education and coaching and stuff like that to like get better at your craft. I'm totally a proponent of that. But I'm a big fan of trying to find new metrics that aren't necessarily the whims, the vanity metrics of what social media is telling us. And so I think that there's like a couple different ways in which you can do this. There are, maybe a private community could be an interesting thing for you to develop, where you have more of a direct connection with your following. Maybe you have an email list where you now have direct control over sending, showing up in someone's inbox. Those are two ways, at least that I've found, that have been so additive to my mental health and well-being when I look at my general happiness of like what I'm doing, is that like I spend most of my time in my private community and like responding to people on my email list now. Cause like, I feel like that's the connection. I feel like I'm having an impact on more of a personalized basis. And frankly, it's one of the reasons why I love the Wizards Guild so much, which is that weekly asynchronous coaching is like, I feel like that impact, that really deep connection that I'm able to forge with a core group of people, like that's more important to me than like, whether I got 5 or 10,000, views or impressions or, whatever on my social media content. And so I realize that that's not something that everyone can do, but I do think it's an interesting thing to strive towards, is like trying to invent new metrics for yourself that aren't based on what the social media platforms say. Sarah says, I see so many people in my field who are desperately on the content wheel, chasing social media clout. They inevitably burn out, and it's sad. Or sometimes they implode with drama, but either way, it's not good. Yeah, and I think that this ties into something that I've been talking about a lot recently. Thank you for sharing, Sarah, which is that, I've started to become more vocal about this kind of stance that I have, that I believe that most creators shouldn't have managers. And one of the reasons why I believe this is that, man, of all the friends that we've made over the years on the internet, the vast majority of the people that offloaded the business stuff to someone else, to a manager, to an agency, whatever, they are almost without exception no longer doing this. And obviously there's like a whole host of reasons for each individual person, of course. But like that almost is kind of a universal thing. And the people who decided to take the business stuff seriously, potentially grow a team, learn how to do this, educate themselves as a leader, take an interest in kind of the business development angle and partnerships, with other companies and other creators and things like that. The people who took that stuff seriously are still doing really well. And so like this is kind of an anecdotal through line that I've noticed with a lot of my friends. And I think that it makes a lot of sense, because if you never live in the headspace of understanding the economic engine behind your creative business, it's really hard for you to make good long-term decisions for your content strategy. One example I can give here, and I've talked about this before, is like, the decision that my wife and I made to go into live commerce and do Amazon Live and things like this. Let's say that we were creators and we didn't have any interest in the business stuff, and we just like love creating YouTube videos. Let's say, actually, this is a great example, right? Our income 8 years ago was 97%, basically AdSense. 97% of our income was AdSense. And to be fair, we were making a lot of money on AdSense because that was like kind of the height of our viewership. And like, when a lot of people were watching, when we were, the pregnancy journey, and I guess it was longer than that, like 8, 9 years ago now. And so brand partnerships were just becoming a thing. Affiliate marketing was a little bit of a thing for us, but not really. And so 97% of my income. And so of our income. And so if we were the creators who didn't care about the business stuff and we hired a manager here, sure, here's 20, 25%, whatever. We're just gonna like stay in our little, like, put our blinders on and stay in our little, shell here. We're only going to do YouTube videos for the rest of eternity. Fast forward to today, 8 years later, our YouTube AdSense earnings are like 1% of our income now. 1%. And so had we, stuck to this like a purity of the craft idea where we're only going to be focusing on our creativity and going where our creative interests go, we'd be screwed. We would now probably have to have regular jobs. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but like we would definitely not be able to be full-time creators 10 years later. Actually, my wife has been a full-time creator for 12 years now. And so, 2012, 11 years she's been. So I've been 9 years. And so, like, think about this, like now, like, we have been on YouTube for a certain long time, a certain amount of time. We've been, on other social platforms and things like this. And here this opportunity comes 2.5 years ago, almost 3 years ago now. Yeah, actually 3 years ago now, it was November of 2020. Amazon approached us about this idea about doing live commerce. And the requirements that they were offering to pay us a flat amount every month to stream for a certain number of hours, but the number of hours was pretty steep and we were already super busy. And so we were thinking to ourselves, like, do we really have the bandwidth to like commit to learning this new thing, getting good at like live streaming and figuring out like the multi-camera setup and like OBS software and like all this stuff that we've done a little bit of live streaming, but not to that level. Are we really going to like invest our time and like teach an old dog new tricks and like learn this thing? And because we have the savviness to like think about the business implications of a new content strategy, of a new content format, I instantly saw like, oh my God, sponsorships are going to be huge with live commerce. Like that in and of itself, putting aside like the money that they're offering to pay us to like do this, for a certain amount of time, the sponsorships are going to be amazing in a year or in a year and a half or something like that. And so we committed to it and we decided to do it. And so fast forward like a year and a half after, like, we made that decision and the Amazon revenue was like 25% of our income. So it was like maybe 3 or 4% previous to that. And it jumped to 25% just within 18 months. And so like, this is the reason where, if you offload all of the business stuff to someone else and you don't have someone really looking out for your best interest of like the holistic picture of like the impact that you can have, and if they're focused on is their 20% cut of the current inbound deals that are coming into you, it's going to be really tough for you to have a long livelihood doing this stuff. So anyways, I know that I talk about this a lot, but I just feel very passionate. Holy cow. Andrew Kahn said, I just got another brand deal. Thanks for all the advice and content. Holy cow. Thank you so much for the super chat, Andrew. So proud of you, man. Can you let me know in the chat? What was it? Like, what was can you share a little bit about the deal? Like, what was it about the videos or content that you watched that helped you? I would love a little bit more information. Let's all give some round of applause. Come on. We got to get some love for Andrew in the chat here. Stoked for you, man. Want to give a shout out to Here Comes the Silver tuning in on Instagram. Good to see you here. We've got Orellana Aesthetics. Did I say that correctly? I don't know if I did. Oreyan. Good to see you here. We've got Rhea. We've got Wong is right. Samir says, dropping some serious golden nuggets here. Golden nuggies here. Thank you, Samir. Appreciate it, dude. Let's go, Andrew. Yes. Awesome. Oh, Andrew said just to reach out more. I mean, isn't that funny? Isn't that interesting how simple it can be just to reach out more and not rely on, brands reaching out to you? One, it was funny. Like we had our graduation party for cohort 10 of Brand Deal Wizard yesterday, and people were just kind of sharing their big takeaways from the program. And one of the big takeaways that one of the students mentioned was that, she was very frustrated that she was not getting a lot of long-term partnerships. It was like everything felt like it was just kind of one-off things, and it was very frustrating. And it was it's so obvious in retrospect, but she was just waiting for the brands that she was collaborating with to reach out to her to collaborate again. She just figured like, okay, if they liked working with me, then they'll reach back out. And in reality, like that's not oftentimes how it works. A brand needs to be reminded of how awesome you are. In fact, I'm going to be releasing a collaboration video with Nick Nimmin. If you know Nick Nimmin, he's like a godfather of YouTube education, and we're going to be talking about his sponsorship strategy. And he shared this story actually in the video about how one of his first partnerships was with Uscreen. If y'all know Uscreen, they're a friend of Creator Wizard. They've sponsored us in the past, and that was one of his first sponsors. And he did a sponsored integration with them, and he thought it went well, but then they never reached out again, and so he was like, oh, maybe it didn't go so well, right? Because again, he figured like, oh, they would reach out if they had any concerns or wanted to collaborate again, this type of thing. And so fast forward like 9 months later, and he ran into them at, I think, like a conference or something like that, and they were talking about the collaboration that they did in the past, and Uscreen said, oh yeah, it was so awesome, we loved it, it was one of our best ones. Oh, and oh, it's so good that we're like meeting here because we should talk again about collaborating again. And so it was like, here Nick was like, for this entire period thinking that it didn't go well, but in reality the brand it went well. Like I think in the absence of any positive feedback or affirmation, oftentimes from our partners, we think like, okay, a silence means it didn't go well. Silence means it didn't go well. And that just couldn't be further from the truth oftentimes. Like people are busy, brands are busy, they're working with lots of different partners. And so it's just like, sometimes not part of their process to like go back out and reach and be like, hey, good job, pat on the back, great work, let's collaborate again. Like, it takes you actually reaching out and being like, hey, loved working with you. Here's some qualitative and quantitative insights on how the partnership went. And oh, by the way, here's my pitch for the next idea, right? This is something I talk about in the post-campaign reporting section of my Brand Deal Wizard program, is like the importance of actually delivering not just screenshots of the analytics, which is what, like, to be fair, that's what most brands ask for. They say, oh, send me a screenshot of your YouTube analytics or your Instagram insights or the open rates on your, or the podcast downloads or whatever. It's like very superficial stuff because that's what they're used to. They're developing their own internal reporting. And so I had a guest expert come to a previous cohort of Brand Deal Wizard, and is a friend named Brendan, and he was a partnership, or he was a partner at a big ad agency, and he said, I've done over 1,000 influencer activations over my career, and only one time has anyone ever delivered reporting to us, like a deck, like slides, right? 1 in 1,000, right? And so like, if you can be the creator who does that, the bar is very, very low to stand out for brands, okay? So I love that anecdote. So I'm really excited for that video with Nick to come out. Sarah says, I like this question. So Sarah says, a related question: how do you follow up in that way when the company specifically says not to reach out about submissions and that they will contact you? Ignore them. Don't. Okay, let me qualify that. Don't ignore them, but like this happens a lot where, let's say you DM a brand on Instagram and you're like, love to collaborate with you. And then they'll say, okay, thank you for your information. We'll pass it along. And if we're interested, we'll get in touch. Like, this is something that a lot of people say. And you just can't take no for an answer, because in that situation, you're never going to hear back, basically. And let's put our hat on of the brand here. I always like doing that kind of the role playing aspect of like, what's the reason they're doing that? It's because people are reaching out all day long with crappy pitches. It's not that interesting. They have this massive volume of crappy pitches. And so they have to put up this roadblock in place. They have to have a gatekeeper there to be like, no, you can't move any further, because, they're just assuming that your pitch is going to suck because 99% of the pitches they get sucked, right? And so you have to find creative ways around that. I would say that the best way to do that is you got to go straight to the source. I almost always find that like pitching on social media will get you responses like that. And so you got to go around it and go to LinkedIn, find the right people, send messages, whether it's cold DM messages on LinkedIn to the right, contact at the brand, or, figuring out their email addresses. Obviously, sending it that way is the ideal scenario. A lot of brands will have like pages on their website devoted to partnerships. So like an ambassadors page or like a partnerships page. And like, that's also equally tricky because, it'll be like ambassadors at brand.com or something like that. And those emails are, it's kind of a crapshoot. You never know whether you're going to hear back on something like that. Right. And so I'm just a big fan of just ignoring that, going straight to the source. I just don't take no for an answer. Like, if brand tells me no, I just be like, okay, it's not no, it's not yet. That's my favorite. They just don't know yet how good of a partner I'm going to be for them. And so I have to convince them. It's my job to convince them. Yeah, of course, if a brand says stop contacting us, don't contact them though. Be polite, and don't like be like a stalker, obviously. But that block that they put up and be like, oh, you don't contact us, we'll contact you. That to me is kind of a weak block. That is gonna stop 99% of people, because everyone's going to be like, okay, right? But you can't be that person. You've got to be the person to like cut through the noise and like stand out and be like, no, here's the reason that we need to collaborate. And it's this very, going back to this whole idea about the rope pitch, it's like, it's got to be relevant to them, rather than just like an ego stroke for you. Y'all, hopefully this was helpful. Really appreciate each and every one of you showing up each week. Andrew, thank you so much again for the super chat. That really meant a lot to me, man. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. I will see you guys hopefully next week. I know I do this live stream every Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. Hope you have a wonderful Veterans Day too, if you celebrate that, or anyone in your family who served. I will see you on the flip side. Peace.